The views and opinions expressed in the following program are those of the hosts and guests, and not necessarily those of the staff or management of Worldwide Digital Broadcasting Corporation. The views and opinions expressed in the following program are those of the hosts and guests, and not necessarily those of the staff or management of Worldwide Digital Broadcasting Corporation.
Knowledge is power, and this is powerful stuff. Wellness Education Cannabis Advocates of Nevada present the We Can 702 Nevada Cannabis News Hour with the We Can radio team. For the next 60 minutes, we'll take an in-depth look at the cannabis reform revolution sweeping the nation. Now, let's fire up the news hour. Here is the We Can radio team.
We have as usual, a lot of news to get to because there's always something happening in the pot world these days. Well, let's start first here in Nevada, where Governor Sandoval actually left the state, went to Washington, D.C., and went to the White House. And according to Jenny Kane at the Reno Gazette-Journal, he did not get a one-on-one with President Trump while visiting the White House this week, but he was able to meet with other cabinet-level officials and offered his view on a number of things, including Yucca Mountain and more importantly to this audience, cannabis. And he said that, the article says that on Wednesday of last week, Sandoval spoke with Attorney General Jeff Sessions about Nevada's recent legalization of recreational marijuana. But he received no guidance from the Attorney General about whether federal agencies might try to intervene, considering that marijuana is still a federally prohibited drug. And the governor said, "I can't speak for the Attorney General, but I advised him that it's in our state law now. We are moving forward." The article then goes on to say that Sandoval budgeted $60 million in revenue from his proposed 10% retail tax on recreational cannabis. And that tax is moving through the current session of the Nevada legislature, kind of like greased lightning. Well, and while Sandoval opposes recreational marijuana use, he repeatedly notes that Nevadans have spoken, though he did not try using the states' rights argument with the Attorney General. And the reason that that's important here is because Attorney General Sessions has been a big supporter and believer in states' rights previously, but those beliefs ran into a screeching halt anytime it comes to pot policy. Why this is important and is of interest to us is that the governor, although he is personally opposed to it, is going out and carrying the flag for this industry to the state. And indeed, Nevadans have spoken by a 9-point margin of 54 to 45 in favor. Nevadans said that it's no longer appropriate to be sending people to jail, to be ruining their lives with a permanent criminal record, and all the other negative factors that impact with responsible cannabis use. So it's good to see that the governor is firmly on board. How much of this is because he's looking to fill a big budget hole and $60 million will go a ways towards that? I'm not going to get into. We're glad to see it happen, though, and props to Governor Sandoval for that. More locally here in Clark County, according to an article by Colton Lockhead of the Las Vegas Review-Journal, Nevada, as a state, and Clark County may clear the way for recreational pot deliveries. And this was an article from April 28th of this year. And it begins that Governor Brian Sandoval's marijuana task force is mulling a proposal that would allow companies to deliver recreational cannabis, letting customers order pot products like they do with pizza or Postmates or various other things. And that proposal will go before the state task force this week. The Clark County Commission was scheduled to hear a presentation today on this, and they are looking seriously at allowing home deliveries of cannabis here in the county. Obviously, in the current state of affairs, medical marijuana companies can deliver to card-carrying patients in their homes, but this would be for the recreational or responsible adult use markets, and it would represent a step forward. Now, it's interesting. The article next goes into something that Chuck Calloway said, and he is the Director of Intergovernmental Services for the Metropolitan Police Department, and he's also a member of the Governor's Task Force. And he said last Friday that having a regulated and restrictive service would help curb illegal delivery services that advertise online. And to my understanding and my knowledge, this is the first time that anyone in the Las Vegas Metropolitan Police Department has come forward with something that is positive and supportive of the cannabis industry. Calloway said that those illegal services aren't just peddling weed. Often they're connected to a larger criminal group that sells heroin or methamphetamine or human trafficking rings that force underage girls into prostitution. It's all well and good to say that. It doesn't show that he has any statistics, any actual facts to back that up, and is just making a claim here. I can't honestly say that I have ever run into somebody slinging weed over the years who would offer me heroin or underage, child prostitutes or something like that. I think that if you get into the argument that, this is part of a much larger empire and other pieces are doing these things, well, okay, maybe you could make a stretch there, but the independent operators, no, I've never seen that happen. But this is just another reason to separate cannabis from the illicit market and get it away from all those criminal activities. So as far as this goes, I hope that we do see a delivery service, because it makes sense. You can get most anything else delivered to your home these days, and I'll tell you what, I think as soon as the government decides to reschedule cannabis, you're going to see Amazon drone dropping your packages of weed on your front doorstep. So I do think that this is something whose time has come. Now, Rihanna Durrett, who is a friend of the show, been on here before, says you can't even tell that these services are illegal. She said if they can go on Craigslist, then they're going to do that unless you make it legal for existing businesses to be able to do the same thing. And it is true. I've been on Craigslist any number of times and just searching through for sale, general section, let's say, and it's amazing how many photographs of buds are on there, or shatter, or wax, or various other things. So it is certain that these deliveries are being made now. But as far as what Ms. Durrett is saying here, that she's pushing to have this as well. Of course, she's pushing because her members of her association, the Nevada Dispensary Association, all stand to profit mightily if this gets passed. So you can understand why somebody in the industry is going for this. But I am more heartened that that we do have the police starting to come around on some of these issues and realize that regulation is better than just blanket prohibition and enforcement. So props to Metro for that one. Also here in Nevada, we're more than halfway through the Nevada legislature for the 2017 session, and as of last week, all bills that were going to be considered viable and continue on would have had to have passed out of their first house, either the Assembly or the Senate. And according to an article by Derek Stanley of Hemp News, Nevada's Senate has passed 4 marijuana-related bills. One will allow cannabis clubs, one deals with cannabis product packaging, one will allow the governor to work with state tribes interested in the cannabis industry, and a measure that would allow medical marijuana to be used to treat opioid addiction, according to the RGJ. Provisions in the packaging bill would ban cannabis-infused products containing sugar except for baked goods. Industry leaders argue that the bill's definition of candy is too broad. And actually, I was testifying at that Senate Judiciary hearing several weeks back when this particular bill came up, and you have people like Senator Don Gustafson from someplace upstate who said marijuana is a dangerous drug and it's really bad and we shouldn't be doing anything to liberalize it. Okay, so remember Senator Gustafson, because we'll get back to him a little bit later in the program. At that time also, Senator Roberson was saying that he thought it was disgusting that people would be advocating greed over child safety. And when the people that he was pointing his remarks to, activists like myself, have nothing to gain one way or the other. And we were just saying it makes sense that if you're going to have cake and cookies and brownies and everything else, the candy is just another part of that chain. It's not something totally different. And the idea that you're protecting children by outlawing cannabis-infused candy while still making cannabis-infused brownies, cookies, cake, or anything else, I don't see the protection there. I don't see the logic in that at all. It just makes no sense to me. But anyway, as we're moving forward in this legislative session, we do have these various bills making it through the House. We do have other bills. There are at least a dozen bills still alive in both branches of the legislature, and we will be moving on very quickly because the legislature closes essentially in the first week of June. So we've got only about a month to go before we see which of these actually get passed into law. And as the municipalities are starting to look at these issues on the recreational side as opposed to the medical side, they're coming up with ideas, and so there are some people who want to throw sand in the gears and slow things down, and other people just want to grease those wheels and speed things up. And up in Reno, once again, according to Jenny Kane of the Reno Gazette-Journal, the Reno City Council has shut down a proposal for a 6-month moratorium on recreational marijuana establishments in their meeting last Wednesday. And they say that neither the city of Sparks nor Washoe County have passed moratoriums, which means that folks may head over to Sparks and other dispensaries in Washoe for marijuana, according to Joey Gilbert, a co-owner of the Mint dispensary in downtown Reno. And for those of you who don't go upstate, Sparks and Reno are right next to each other. They are like Las Vegas and Henderson. So the idea that you would have the city of Reno decide, oh, we're not going to have any dispensaries here, we're going to put a moratorium when they're just going to go down the street and get something, is kind of self-defeating. And it's similar to what the city of Las Vegas started to do when SB 374 got passed 4 years ago, and the medical marijuana dispensaries were starting to pop up, or starting to they were authorized and getting ready to open. So at that time, the city of Las Vegas was going to put this moratorium in, and it became obvious pretty quickly that if they didn't want to have those businesses, that Clark County and North Las Vegas and other municipalities were going to grab this. So in Reno, the moratorium, which was proposed by the code enforcement manager, Alex Woodley, it would have afforded the city time to familiarize itself with state regulations being developed by the Department of Taxation, Mr. Woodley said. Members of the Reno City Council, however, were not too keen on this idea. And Councilwoman Jenny Breckhus said, it sounded good in December, but it doesn't sound like a good idea at the end of April. And kudos to you, Councilwoman Breckhus, because you understand that changing situations call for revising your views and possibly moving out of a position of comfort here. So it's good to see that the city of Reno will be moving forward with this new economic engine because it's going to do their locality good, and it's going to be part of the governor's plan for those $60 million in taxes we just talked about. Also, to touch back to something from 4/20, April 20th, we mentioned on the show last time that that state senator and friend of the show, Tick Segerblum, had handed out pot brownies to various members of the legislature at that time, and some of them got back to him through Twitter and played along with this. What Senator Siegelblum gave them were brownies, each with a sticker proclaiming Happy 420. And according to Deputy Minority Floor Leader Jim Wheeler of Gardnerville, he opposed the legalization effort, but posted a photo of his still-wrapped brownie along with the tweet, "Thanks, Tick, but no thanks. After all, I'm diabetic." Now, here's a guy who staunchly opposed, but he's making light of the thing. Ha ha, pop brownies, it's so funny. What happened to this dangerous scourge? And I would remind you that Mr. Wheeler, Assemblyman Wheeler, was one of those people, or was a person who came to the public awareness a couple of years ago when he had said that if his constituents wanted slavery, he would vote for a return to slavery. Some of these guys, I don't know how they get elected, but anyway. Also, we mentioned Senator Don Gustafson before. We're saying that marijuana is a very dangerous drug and all. Well, okay, he also got his brownie and tweeted to Senator Siegelblum, at Siegelblum, what about the labeling requirements? So here's a guy who in one hearing is saying what a dangerous drug marijuana is, and the children. And here he is, he's making light of it. If he really believed that this was something truly serious, he would not make a joke out of this. He would have used that as an opportunity to further his platform. So it just shows me that that this issue is evolving so rapidly that even people who have their feet firmly planted in concrete on this issue don't realize that concrete is still a little wet, and they're kind of moving forward millimeter by millimeter in our direction. So we're glad to hear that. All right, we're going to take a quick break. We'll see you right back.
My name is Janine Evans, and I am the office manager at Getting Legal, and we help people get their medical marijuana cards. Anyone can be approved for a medical marijuana card as long as they have a pre-existing medical condition. The medical conditions recognized in Nevada include severe pain, severe nausea, muscle spasms, seizures, glaucoma, cancer, HIV or AIDS, and post-traumatic stress disorder. Our staff helps every patient determine before they come in for a visit whether or not they will qualify. We take care of the whole process of getting a medical marijuana card from the state of Nevada from start to finish. Our services include paperwork processing, a physician's visit, notary services. All of our patients pick up their approval letters right here in our office. We make it fast, simple, and easy. During your consultation, we will discuss different products available at the dispensaries, such as edibles, lotions, and concentrates. We will also discuss different ways to medicate, such as smoking or vaporizing. You will receive a separate identification card identifying you as a medical marijuana patient. This is used to enter the dispensaries and only to enter the dispensaries. Every veteran receives a discount off of the full price of their card. We also offer discounts to anyone working within the medical marijuana industry. All you need to do is call 702-979-9999 and a member of our friendly staff will help you schedule an appointment.
And we're back with the Cannabis News Hour. Let's move on to Washington here. There are just a couple of quick notes. There are two bills that have been recently introduced into the Congress of the United States, and these bills do concern the cannabis industry and people who are interested in this area. One of them is House Resolution 2273, and this resolution is to amend the Controlled Substances Act to exclude cannabidiol and cannabidiol-rich plants from the definition of marijuana and for other purposes. this is important because last December, the DEA decided to schedule CBD, cannabidiol, as a Schedule 1 substance because it comes from the cannabis plant. They are using that even though CBD is not psychoactive at all. It has no dependency issues or other safety issues whatsoever, but because it comes from the cannabis plant, the DEA is kind of stretching that definition in order to keep their jobs program going, because that's what cannabis prohibition is to the DEA. It's a big $10 billion jobs program. So anyway, what this will do is exclude CBD from the definition and therefore allow the market, which has already grown up across the country, to actually continue. The DEA has not taken any enforcement action on CBD post their decision in December, but nobody likes to live with that fear and looking over their shoulder that the government might be coming after them. In the actual bill name itself, where it says to amend the Controlled Substance Act to exclude cannabidiol from the definition of marijuana, they still use the archaic spelling of marijuana with an H instead of a J, something that really hasn't been done anywhere in over 50 years. And it shows you how much the government can be behind the times on these things sometimes. This is a good idea, and it will allow, as I said, these companies who are already extracting CBD and putting it into tinctures and various other ointments to continue selling their products, not only within their state lines but across state lines, because CBD is well known to have anti-inflammatory and other medical properties, and this is something which should not be denied the people. There is no good, justifiable, or compassionate reason to do so, and so I would ask that you get a hold of your congressional representative and ask them to support H.R. 2273. And there's another House resolution that has been introduced last week, and that's 2215, and that will create protections for depository institutions that provide financial services to cannabis-related legitimate businesses and for other purposes. Basically, that means they're going to allow pot businesses to have bank accounts and to deal with banks. This is something that the government that people like Dana Rohrabacher of California and others have been working towards for at least 5 years now, and it's good to see that it's getting more traction. This bill was introduced just last week, and it already has 28 co-sponsors in the House. So that's a really good move forward, and I need to do a special shout out here. Two of those co-sponsors are Representative Dina Titus of the 1st Congressional District of Nevada and Representative Ruben Cahuan of the 4th Congressional District of Nevada. These guys get it. They know that allowing cannabis businesses to do regular banking is in the interest of public safety. When you're in a situation where you have a cash business and you cannot turn that into electronic funds or into various other banking instruments, you are creating an unsafe situation because there's lots of money, there's lots of pot around, and there are bad people who want to take one or both of them. And so the idea that you can actually have a legal business and then have all that comes along with a truly legal business, including banking services, is a good idea. So once again, I would suggest that if you're interested, get a hold of your Congress critter and have them support H.R. 2215 and H.R. 2273. Now, also beyond Nevada here in legislative, I came across something this morning, which is SB 786 out of Hawaii. And and it's a fairly simple bill relating to medical marijuana, and it's the report title is Medical Marijuana, Medical Cannabis Change of Terminology. And what this bill will do in Hawaii is amend the Hawaii revised statutes and Hawaii administrative rules to substitute references to medical marijuana and the like, or marijuana, with terms like medical cannabis and like terms. It requires their Department of Health to make all conforming revisions to administrative rules upon their next amendment to other items by December 31st, 2019. For years, I've been saying that marijuana is a pejorative term. It is something that people use to stigmatize this particular plant. It's a slang, and cannabis is the proper medical term. So if you're talking about medical cannabis use, you should be talking about medical cannabis. To attach medical marijuana to it is just retaining that stigma of decades past. And I've had discussions with people like Joe Bresney, another friend of the show who was the spokesperson for the Question 2 initiative, and he said that the public perception is that marijuana still tests negatively, but medical marijuana does not have that negative connotation, as long as you're attaching that medical word. Well, let's get rid of any ambiguity there and just go to medical cannabis. And I would hope that in the next legislative session, we can take this bill out of Hawaii and bring it up to Carson City and say, this is common sense. Let's do this. Let's get it done. A couple of quick notes here, because there's just so many different things that we can't get to. But in Seattle, just yesterday, May Day, we have socialist marches going on, and we have counter marches and counterculture, all that sort of stuff. Well, up in Seattle, there was a May Day celebration going on with your typical progressive leftist, communist pinko fags, whatever they used to call them in the 60s, right? And they were having their demonstration, and it was an anti-Trump demonstration, and a pro-Trump counter-demonstration showed up. And, there have been, if you look at the news at all, you will see that there have been some physical and violent clashes between these two groups around America. Well, they have a little different take on it up in Seattle, because the two sides stopped screaming each other. And there's video of this that you can go see on the internet that shows that these two sides came together in their great differences about the administration. They got together, they started rolling joints, and they started smoking together. And they were happy, and they were peaceful, and they said, we disagree, but it's all right, we're all Americans here. And that is the truth. We're not Democrats, we're not Republicans, we're not libertarians, we're Americans. And the idea that these guys were able to smoke the peace pipe, as it were, between them, I think thumbs up for Seattle and what they're doing up there. Yeah, bravo to them. Also, very quickly, getting back to Congress, Congress approved last week, and President Trump, and I still have a tough time saying that, President Trump signed short-term legislation keeping the government funded. And why is this important to us? Because in keeping the government funded, they also had the Hinchy-Rohrbacher amendment in there, which prevents the federal government from spending $1 going after legitimate, licensed medical marijuana facilities or patients in medical marijuana states. So those protections are still there, and that's a real important thing. All right, we're going to take another quick break. Be right back. And we're back with the Cannabis News Hour. Thanks for staying with us. I've got an article here by Tom Angel of the Marijuana Majority, who is doing just fantastic work. He writes for Massroots. He has been a real go-to guy on information about what's happening in the cannabis world, and I can't I can't thank him enough for being involved in this. But he's got an article that he wrote, posted yesterday in massroots.com, saying the feds admit marijuana's potential to reduce opioid problems. And he opens it up saying a growing body of scientific research indicates that legal marijuana access leads to reduced opioid issues, and now the federal government can't help but admit it. In a new update to a webpage on cannabis's medical uses, the National Institute on Drug Abuse reported that medical marijuana products may have a role in reducing the use of opioids needed to control pain. Reporting the results of studies that the agency funded, the revised NIDA page says that one, quote, found an association between medical marijuana legalization and a reduction in overdose deaths from opioid pain relievers, an effect that strengthened in each year following the implementation of legislation, close quote. A second federally funded study showed that legally protected access to medical marijuana dispensaries is associated with lower levels of opioid prescribing, lower self-report of non-medical prescription opioid use, lower treatment admissions for prescription opioid use disorders, and reduction in prescription opioid overdose deaths. Further, the latter study demonstrated that the reduction in deaths was present only in states with dispensaries, not just medical marijuana laws, and was greater in states with active dispensaries. Now, this is something that we in the activist community have been saying for years and trying to point out that anecdotal stories of so many people who have weaned themselves off of opioids by using cannabis, and that it's odd that after decades of the government saying that cannabis was a gateway drug to harder drugs, that it turns out that cannabis is really a gate swinging in the other direction, getting people off of those harder drugs and to something that is much safer and much I don't even want to say less harmful, because ultimately we do think that cannabis is a beneficial substance to the body. And so now you have the federal government with the National Institute on Drug Abuse saying that there is a medical use. Now, with this, I don't see how the DEA or Congress or the administration has a leg to stand on when they keep cannabis at Schedule 1, which by very definition has no accepted medical use. The government itself is now acknowledging that that cannabis can help relieve the opioid epidemic that's going on, and all across the country, from NIDA, from governors, Governor Sandoval, for example. This is one of his signature issues. And personally, I don't think the government should get between a doctor and their patient. And if a patient is in severe pain, and they need those meds, then that should be the end of it. Unfortunately, though, Americans have tended to, I guess, be overly sensitive to pain than the rest of the world, because 90% of all opioids produced in the world are consumed in the United States, and we only have 5% of the world's population. So we manufacture enough opioids to give every man, woman, and child a full bottle of pills in this country every year. And so I understand that there is a need to do something. We have opioid deaths, accidental overdoses, and I won't even include suicides in this, because if somebody wants to kill themselves, they're going to find a way to do it. Taking a bunch of pills and going to sleep, I guess that's an easy way, but that shouldn't be part of this equation. We're talking about accidental overdoses, we're talking about addictions, and we're talking about the fallout that happens after that addiction occurs. Because once a patient stops having access to those medical pharmaceutical opioids, because, for example, here in Nevada, where the governor last session had bills rammed through that set up a new database to track doctors and how many opioid prescriptions they were writing, and have sanctions on those who were in the top percentiles. That has done nothing to actually really stop the use of this. And what happens is these people just go out onto the street, and some of the people who get these prescriptions, they'll just resell them. And I hear that some of these pills can go $10, $20 or more a pill. And if they can't get those, then heroin is cheaper by a factor of 10. And so many of these opioid addicts wind up going in that direction. And so if we can use cannabis for no other reason than to reduce opioid dependency in the country, I would say that is more than enough reason to embrace this substance fully and realize that it is one of lesser harm. Also, last month, a separate study on this issue found that spending on prescription drugs through Medicaid is significantly lower in states with medical cannabis laws than states without medical marijuana. And Medicaid is obviously for low-income people, for people who've had various problems and are just on the ropes, and people like that generally don't go to doctors because they can't afford it. If they get onto Medicaid, they will get what treatment they can, but it will be somewhat limited. And so I think a lot of these the people in these states would go to wherever they could get the relief. And if they weren't getting it because they couldn't afford high-priced opioids, that's your heroin use right there, and that's part of why heroin use has been going up in this country. And also from this, I had read a little bit earlier that it said that the study demonstrated the reduction in deaths was present only in states with dispensaries. So it's not enough just to say, okay, we're not going to take you, sick person, and we're not going to lock you up and give you a criminal record and make you spend what money you have on a lawyer and go through all this. But we're going to make you grow your own medicine, or we're not going to give you, reasonable access to it. That doesn't help. But when you have this dispensaries, which are good for the community, which are good for the state in revenues, that is also good for reducing the number of deaths from opioids. So this is some important work that Tom Angel is doing, and pointing out what the government is starting to acknowledge. If all states, the researchers wrote, had a medicinal marijuana law, the total savings for fee-to-service Medicaid could have been $1.01 billion. So we could have saved $1 billion. That's, as they say in Washington, $1 billion here, $1 billion there. Sooner or later, you're starting talking about real money. So being able to save $1 billion on Medicaid is something that the government should want to do. So we'll continue to follow this story, because the opioid crisis in America is not going away anytime soon, and it seems that our legislatures and our law enforcement doesn't really have a good, effective handle on how to reduce this demand. So maybe we're going to see cannabis come to the rescue here. We have another story that came in, just a note, and this also came across the wires just yesterday. And Federal Border Patrol agents yesterday reported that agents discovered over 67 pounds of marijuana concealed in a funeral hearse. Early Saturday evening, it says, agents were working near the immigration checkpoint and noticed a white hearse traveling south towards Tombstone. Of course, we've got a hearse in Tombstone, Arizona. A while later, the agents observed the same hearse traveling north and turning west before reaching the State Road 80 immigration checkpoint. Upon further investigation of this vehicle, agents conducted an immigration vehicle stop. After several inconsistencies from the driver, consent was requested and granted to allow a canine to perform a sniff of the vehicle. A Border Patrol canine unit was requested and arrived to the location of the stop, and the canine alerted to an odor it was trained to detect. And a search of the vehicle revealed multiple bricks of marijuana worth over $33,000, and the vehicle and drugs were seized. The 28-year-old male was arrested and is being processed in Tucson. Now, there are a couple of interesting points here. First one that jumps right out to me is it says a search of the vehicle revealed multiple bricks of marijuana worth over $33,000. Okay, now this is 67 pounds. Now, it wasn't too many years ago when you would regularly have law enforcement valuing cannabis that they grab at $5,000 a pound. Now, all of a sudden, we've got 67 pounds at worth $33K. That's only $500 a pound. So, you see, legalization, regulation works. It decreases the street value, and here even the government is admitting that this is happening. The other point of this story, that consent was requested and granted to allow a canine to perform a sniff of the vehicle. This goes back to something we've said on this show before. Your constitutional rights are only there when you assert them. If you give your rights away, they're gone. No lawyer is going to be able to get them back from you. Nobody is going to be able to help you. Never consent. I don't understand why people who are doing something that is against the law or carrying something that is considered contraband by the authorities would ever willingly give up their constitutional protections and allow a search, because they know what the end result is going to be. In their logical mind, they know that when the authorities find whatever it is they're going to find, they're going to get arrested. But somehow they have this forlorn thought, oh, if I cooperate, it'll go easier on me. Maybe they'll just give me a warrant. No, forget all that stuff. You know, countless Americans have died in the past 200 plus years to secure our constitutional rights and to protect our Constitution. Do not dishonor them, and do not hurt yourself by giving those rights up. It doesn't matter what Mr. Good Cop says or what Mr. Bad Cop says. Irrelevant. You stick to your constitutional rights, because those were fought and paid for in American blood for you to be able to have the ability to say, no, officer, if you want to do that, get a warrant. And don't ever hesitate to do that, because if you think that you're just going to piss them off, no, be respectful. But hold on to your rights. That's not going to piss them off. If anything, they'll probably have a little more respect for you. So don't be driving hearses full of pot around Tombstone. Probably not a good idea. Hey, we're going to take another quick break.
My name is Janine Evans, and I am the office manager at Getting Legal, and we help people get their medical marijuana cards. Anyone can be approved for a medical marijuana card as long as they have a pre-existing medical condition. The medical conditions recognized in Nevada include severe pain, severe nausea, muscle spasms, seizures, glaucoma, cancer, HIV or AIDS, and post-traumatic stress disorder. Our staff helps every patient determine before they come in for a visit whether or not they will qualify. We take care of the whole process of getting a medical marijuana card from the state of Nevada from start to finish. Our services include paperwork processing, a physician's visit, notary services. All of our patients pick up their approval letters right here in our office. We make it fast, simple, and easy. During your consultation, we will discuss different products available at the dispensaries, such as edibles, lotions, and concentrates. We will also discuss different ways to medicate, such as smoking or vaporizing. You will receive a separate identification card identifying you as a medical marijuana patient. This is used to enter the dispensaries and only to enter the dispensaries. Every veteran receives a discount off of the full price of their card. We also offer discounts to anyone working within the medical marijuana industry. All you need to do is call 702-979-9999 and a member of our friendly staff will help you schedule an appointment.
Welcome back to the show. All right, we in the last segment we're talking about Medicaid costs being lower with medical marijuana. Well, we have a study coming out of Georgia, and this comes to us from Derek Stanley at Hemp News, that patients use fewer prescription drugs in state where medical marijuana is legal, according to data published from the Journal of Health Affairs. Investigators at the University of Georgia assessed the association between medical marijuana regulations and the average number of prescriptions filled by Medicaid beneficiaries between the years 2007 and 2014. The researchers reported that the use of prescription drugs in fee-for-service Medicaid was lower in states with medical marijuana laws than in states without such laws. In 5 of the 9 broad clinical areas we studied. So this team had previously published a report that medical cannabis access was associated with significantly reduced spendings by patients on Medicare Part D approved prescription drugs. So they're finding here that it's not only the poor patients who are using less prescriptions in medical marijuana states, but Medicare patients, that's anybody in this country 65 or over, plus other disabled people, also have significantly reduced spending by patients in medical cannabis states. So this just backs up what others are saying and shows more and more proof why we should be able to have this nationwide, because it will result in significant cost savings. Now, also in Georgia, since we're talking about that, I came across a story in several sources about Republican Representative Alan Peake. And he is actually supplying low THC cannabis oils to Georgia patients. These are CBD oils, right, that the DEA just scheduled up at 1, and now the Congress is trying to take it out. So Representative Peake is supplying these to people because the medical marijuana law in Georgia is a CBD-only law, and it allows them to possess the products but offers them no way to cultivate, import, or purchase them. Now, Peake is a major advocate for Georgia's medical marijuana law, and he has helped families move to Colorado in the past so that they would have legal access to medical marijuana treatments. These are people like Charlotte Figge's family, the girl who the Charlotte's Web strain was named after. And Representative Peake said that we're going to do whatever it takes to be able to help get these products to these families, these citizens who have debilitating illnesses. He added that he doesn't know and doesn't ask who delivers the boxes of cannabis oil to his Macon office. He said he makes a donation to a medical cannabis research foundation in Colorado each time a box is delivered, and that the donations totaled about $100,000 per year. Peake is allowed to legally possess the oil because he has obtained a medical marijuana card from the Georgia Department of Public Health, despite the fact that he is not considered a qualified patient under the state rules. And in Georgia, about 1,300 patients are enrolled in this program. And so, aside from Peake, Representative Peake, these patients, their only option to obtain the oil is to go online and order it from across state borders, which is against federal law. And I got to say, my hat's off to Representative Peake. He's doing the right thing. He sees the problem, he sees the solution, and he is a man of action, taking charge. And all kudos in the world go to him. But I have to wonder about a situation where you have someone who is not considered a qualified patient under the state rules, who is moving over $100,000 per year in cannabis-based products, and who is not running afoul of the law in any way, shape, or form. Is it because he's a state representative? I don't know. I wouldn't venture a guess. But it just seems odd that some people who do these sort of things wind up with state or federal felony records, and other people wind up with kudos from guys like me. Well, I don't know what your secret is, Representative Peake, but stick with it. You're doing the right thing. Okay, couple of quick notes here. We know that the cannabis revolution has really come of age now because we've got our own book here to start a business. The Idiot's Guide. Starting and running a marijuana business. Paperback, $21.95, to be published next month. Author Debbie Goldsberry. And according to the description in this comprehensive overview, Idiot's Guide, Starting and Running a Marijuana Business, teaches readers how to end up on the lucrative side of the green rush, whether they plan to grow, sell, or buy. By learning best practices for securing locations and permits, dealing with financial restraints from the U.S. government, in addition to all the day-to-day aspects of managing a business. And the book includes insight on legal challenges from state to state, how to navigate them to maximize earning potential, expert advice on local cultivation sites, marketing strategies, checklists for owners. Well, that's it, guys. We've got an Idiot's Guide. Any damn fool can run a pot business now. So I don't know. I wish I had written it. What can I tell you? Okay. And one final thing. There's a show that I have not yet seen, and it's called The Marijuana Show. And there's going to be another of many business expos. This one is going to be called the Cannabis World Congress and Business Exposition. And they have officially partnered with the Marijuana Show, which is an Amazon TV series, which has been dubbed the Shark Tank of cannabis, with over 250 million reach to offer cannabis businesses the opportunity to pitch their new ideas. Hey, this lady who's got the Idiot's Guide ought to advertise on that show. And pitching opportunities to the Marijuana Show judges will now be available at the Cannabis World Congress and Business Expositions Expos coast-to-coast marketing events in New York, Los Angeles, and Boston. These expos provide information, education, products for medical and recreational marijuana use. So basically, if you've got a really killer app idea, you got a wonderful thing to go, you can go to their website, which is www.cwcbexpo.com, and find out which of these locations would be good for you. Most likely with our audience it would be in Los Angeles, but you can have your killer app idea, go on there and propose it to these guys, and may find yourself some angel funding. So we've got the federal government admitting marijuana has medical values. We have bills coming through Congress that are going to legitimize the industry. We've got Idiots' Guides and Shark Tank shows. Boy, it's a renaissance. We've arrived. Finally, almost. We've arrived, but we're still knocking on the door. Hey, with that, have yourselves a great week. We'll see you next time. Stay safe.